Hi juniors and seniors, this is your Grow and Love tutorial for Monday the 8th of February. We took a little break from the life of the Holy Family last week to talk about Bridget because it was St. Bridget's Day. But we're back to them now this week and we're talking again about Jesus, Mary and Joseph. And we're talking about their lives, so where they lived. And what we know about them is that they lived in a place called Nazareth. You might think of the word Bethlehem, the place Bethlehem, but that was a big city where, cities back then were much smaller, but that was a big town where Jesus was born. Where he lived most of the time was an area called Nazareth, and it was about 70 miles away from Bethlehem, from the biggest town, and it was a very simple sort of a place. And where they would have lived, we don't know exactly what their house was like, but we know that it would have been a very simple sort of a place. So if it was, if it was anything, it was made of stone or made of mud bricks, and it would have been a very simple place to live. The idea about things about houses back then was that there were a lot of things they didn't have. When you go around your kitchen, around your home, you have lots and lots of modern, modern new things that make your life easier. They wouldn't have had them back then. For example, if you want a glass of water, you go to the tap, you turn on the tap, and out comes cold water, and if you're lucky, hot water either. If Jesus wanted water, he had to go to a well, and they may have had a well at their house where they could have gotten water, and they may have had to go to a local well to get water. So, and it certainly wouldn't have been hot or cold; it was whatever came out. Also, the place where they lived in the world was a very hot place, so that's another thing to take into account when you're thinking about where Jesus grew up. It was a very, very hot place. We don't live in a very, very hot place most of the time. So that's another thing about where Jesus lived. And that is also why they wore such comfortable and loose clothes. So it almost looks like they were all wearing kind of basically the robes that they wore were almost like a dress, where you had your sandals and you had your robes, and it was a very comfortable sort of type of clothes for warm weather. So let's take a look then at the Holy Family. We'll take a look at some of the things that they had at home. This is Jesus when he was very small and his father Joseph. Okay, Joseph was a carpenter. A carpenter is somebody who makes things out of wood. Carpenter is a job that is still around today, but you might know it as a joiner or I suppose a furniture worker, a fitter who makes kitchens, things like that. Some of you actually would definitely know carpenters in your lives. And here he is cutting up some wood to make something. We don't know exactly what kind of a carpenter he was, but he probably made basic furniture. Here is Jesus playing outside. Jesus probably would have played with very simple things. He would have played with bricks. He would have played outdoors a lot because there were no lights in his house. So if you're indoors, it's going to be dark. So playing outdoors was definitely a thing that he would have been doing when he was a little boy. And he would have played outside in nature, and he would have probably been able to play with blocks because that was something that boys and girls did at that time and in that place in history. Food. So Jesus would have had very simple meals. It would have been quite a healthy lifestyle. There were no sweets, no bars of chocolate. There were sweets back then, but they were very, very expensive, and only rich people would have had them. And Jesus's family wasn't rich, so they would have eaten a lot of fruit. They would have made their own bread, and they would have eaten things like fish. That is all mentioned in the stories that we have about Jesus. And Jesus would have drank a lot of water because there was no Coca-Cola or anything like that, or no juice, no what's it called, Kiora or stuff like that to make your water taste nice. Would have just been water for him, and his parents might have had maybe some wine if they could get it. They would have gotten water from their well or from a local well. As you can see, Mary has a rope, so she's dropping in a bucket or a jug to pull up some water and pour it into this jug for Jesus to bring inside. Also, take a look at a few more pictures. They would have prayed together a lot. Jesus was Jewish, so they would have done a lot of praying. They would have gone when they weren't praying at home. They would pray in the temple, and they would see the high priests in the temple and things like that, where all of the locals would go. Jesus would have slept in a very, very simple bed. The house probably didn't have many rooms. I'd say it was probably just one room. And they would have slept on very simple cots, is what they would be called. You think of a cot as something that a baby sleeps in, but a cot was basically a bed back in Jesus' time, and it would have been a very simple place to sleep on. Just maybe some wood and some straw to make it soft for you to sleep on, and then a blanket. So it would have been a very simple way to live. Nowadays we have much more comfort, really. Your house has you've probably got your own room even to sleep in, and you've got water that comes out of the tap, you've got lights that switch on. So when you take a look at your book today, page 28, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph lived in Nazareth, and that's the place where they lived in a very simple home. And we live in, and you might write down, I would say most of you anyway would write down Milltown Pass or Rotford Bridge, or some of you live just outside Mullingar. So get some help writing that down. We live in, and you'll draw me a picture of your home. And I want you to have a think about Jesus's home and the things that he would have done for fun, like as we said, playing with bricks. That's something that you might do as well. You might play with bricks, and they might not be mud bricks like Jesus would have played with, or stone, but you do play with things like Lego. You play with cubes at school, things like that. So some things haven't changed, but a lot of things have. And one thing is for certain: we definitely have an easier life than Jesus, Mary, and Joseph would have had, because we don't have to go to a well to get our water. We have light and heat, and we have a lot of other comforts. So think about the things that you have that Jesus wouldn't have had, and the things that are still the same that Jesus did have and that you still have. And then you can read this poem at home and have a little chat about that. So best of luck with that today, guys. Slán agus gura maith agaibh.